Welcome to this episode of the Real Agents of Change. I'm super excited about this one because we're going to take a deep dive with someone who is super educated around charitable remainder trust and all kinds of things that we are not professionals at, but that's why we look for people like this to partner with. So, Terry Dupont, let's talk a little bit about the bullet points here. Terry is the founder and director of advanced planning for Dupont Advisory Group, which is a national family office enterprise, and they help successful business and families with tax and wealth strategies. Mouthful. I want you guys to go back and listen and really wrap your head around who we're talking to today. And he's also a certified philanthropic developer, showing families and business owners how to profit from charitable planning. Ooh, want to learn about that. And his team consists of really high-level professionals nationwide. So, Terry, we're having a conversation today. We like to specifically talk about real estate and how it can benefit philanthropists, nonprofits, all the real estate and financial professionals. Give us just your first thoughts on what we've just mentioned about you and your group.
Yeah, and I'll try to keep it focused on what you would like to have it focused on, Cami. But a lot of people, for one reason or another, just aren't aware. When I say most people, I'm talking, very successful people who you would think would know about these things, but many times there are other professionals, the tax professional, CPA, attorney, etc. Not to dish anybody that just don't mention those things to their clients when they have real estate in their estate that they whether they're living or not that they want to sell or distribute in one form or another, but they just don't do it because they don't like to pay all the capital gains taxes. And so consequently, what they don't realize is, by gifting real estate to, or any other property for that matter, by donating real estate to nonprofits, they can actually profit on the sale of that or by giving it away to charity in ways that they probably didn't imagine. For instance, let's say they've got a $1 million building that they paid $200,000 for several years ago. It's now worth $1 million. They will go to sell it and find out, well, they've got to pay $800,000 in capital gains taxes. And so they either don't sell it or they sell it and pay the taxes, right? And there's other areas that help people mitigate and reduce or alleviate capital gains taxes. But one of the many that they leave out, options they leave out, is charitable giving. And one of the reasons is they don't know about it in many cases. And number two, many of the charities don't want to accept real estate as a gift because they don't know how to manage it. They don't want to manage it. It's sometimes a thorn in their side to get it sold for one reason or another. And so you got a couple different reasons there why it doesn't happen. And so with organizations like yours, Cami, they take out, you take out a couple of problems. Number one, the as an intermediary, you are able to step in and accept that gift for them for the charity and get it sold through normal procedures for the charity so that they don't have the management. And now the owner of that property gets a large tax deduction that they can carry over for 5 years. With some of these strategies, they can get income from it after they've donated it, and they can even pass that income, some of that income, onto their heirs. So, without getting into all the details, there are some very profitable things that can happen through the gifting of real estate in the realm by either reducing or alleviating taxes and producing other tax income or other income, I should say.
Well, I'd love for you to go down that path with us a little bit. In other words, avoiding taxes, saving money on taxes is one thing, but how can they actually profit from it? Can you give us a couple examples about that?
Yeah. Well, number one, if you've got $1 million property that you were going to sell, but yet you've got to pay, in this example I previous used, you got $800,000 of gain that's going to be taxed. That reduces, depending on what state you're in and what the income taxes per state are, 25, 30%. Reduces the proceeds of the sale by 25 to 30% possibly. And so let's just be a little more conservative. And I'll say that after the sale, they net $800,000 out of that $1 million property after taxes. They may want to do that, or they may not want to do that. But what if they didn't have to pay any taxes? Well, by donating that property to charity, the charity then sells it, and there is no capital gains tax to pay because the charity is tax exempt. And so what we do in many cases is set up some type of tax exempt trust. And so when that property is donated, then the tax exempt trust sells it, and there are no capital gains. And now the donor, the property owner, can also draw income from that tax exempt trust over their lifetimes, and sometimes over the lifetimes of their heirs, depending on how they want to structure it. And
Interesting.
so between avoiding the taxes and the income that is generated, and more times it generates more income and more net asset back to the, or more net worth back to the donor than just selling it and going on down the road.
You know,
Plus, plus
oh,
they've done something for their communities and for others, by donating a property and getting that into the nonprofits' hands. And it helps the community. It reduces their taxes, it provides them more benefits, and they've helped a lot of people in the process.
exactly. And a lot of the times when we're talking, even to financial advisors, they'll say things like, well, I've never had anybody want to donate real estate before. If it ever comes up, we'll give you a call. And we always say, well, that's waiting to respond, react when
Mhm.
somebody else figures something out. What we want to do is encourage people to be proactive and even bring it up and suggest it and be a specialist in that area. Clearly, you've done these before. Can you give us an example of maybe someone that you might have suggested that they actually donate real estate?
I have, yeah. I had a client with some farm ground, and they don't live too far from me, actually. And it's probably the most recent one. And they were going to pay some hefty capital gains taxes because they inherited this property many, many, many years ago. They've had it for 20, 25 years. It's grown immensely in value, especially with farm ground in the area that I'm in. And it was either sell and then pay all the taxes, or find some other opportunity or option that they could use to kind of mitigate those taxes and still get some benefit out of it for themselves. And so we ended up setting up a plan that allowed them to donate that property to a nonprofit charity, avoid the capital gains taxes, and over their lifetimes get more income out of it than what they would have had they just sold it.
Now, what would you say to a nonprofit who's watching this video who says, well, once again, the comment, well, I've never been offered any real estate, or even the ones who have been offered it but have turned it down because it sounds so complicated. What would you say to the nonprofits about how to speak to their donors about this and help educate them about why they would want to donate real estate?
Well, I think there's really only there may be more, but from my perspective, the reason most of them turn it down is they don't want that asset that they have to jump through circles with and getting liquidated. Because let's face it, the charity can't spend steel and bricks. They can only spend money, cash money, on things for the community that they're in, or whatever their cause is. And so they don't have the expertise or the desire to manage and or try and figure out how to sell a property. And so, most of the time, that's the only reason that they would reject the offer. But if you've got an intermediary there, like yourself, that can take care and get that property liquidated for the charity, and if they knew that that was possible, I would think that they would take advantage of that more often.
Well, just to be full transparency, the real agents of change are not the intermediary. We do work with specialized 501(c)(3)s that are the intermediary. I just don't want to put the wrong impression
Right.
out, but I know you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. I just want to make sure that our viewers know. So,
Gotcha.
so share with us a little bit about you and I, before we came on this video, we were talking about a story that I was sharing with you about Neiman Marcus, and they're just one of many examples of big corporations, industries that are really hurting since the pandemic. And, they don't need, I mean, in their case, 500 million square feet of office space that they dumped, according to the reporter. And this is an epidemic of the pandemic, of all these office spaces being empty. What would you say to all these property owners who have properties worth hundreds of millions of dollars that, frankly, they're bleeding now and they're going to be bleeding every month with these vacant properties? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a tough one for the property owners because, and if I could step back a moment and go back to the pandemic, and after the worst of it was over, and I saw what was happening, I'm going, I need to liquidate and talk to some of my clients about liquidating some of their commercial real estate holdings if it was in a fund or something like that, because the next several years are not going to be good for commercial real estate, especially in office space, because these people aren't going to want to go back to work, at least at the office. They want to stay home now and work. And that's exactly what's happened. I don't know how long it'll last or if it's permanent. Um, but there's an issue there in commercial real estate, especially the office space, of ever being able to, have all that property vacated again. And so I encourage those people, those owners, uh, if they're looking to do something that I'm not saying giving the money away, but at least look at the options to see how it might benefit you.
Now, I just want to play devil's advocate because as you're speaking, I'm hearing people saying out loud or thinking, well, yeah, but when it's donated, who's going to want to buy it? If those people couldn't put people in the office space, why would somebody else buy it? But I just want to point out that a lot of real estate is being repurposed. For example, there was a building donated in St. Paul that was an office building that was donated to the Salvation Army to use for the homeless. So
Mhm.
they can convert these offices into apartments or into different use. And of course, that's going to take its own type of system and lawyers, what have you. But the point is that if you've got that $1 million piece of property, or in these cases, hundreds of millions of dollars, but $1 million piece of property that's an office building, well, it could be that once it's donated and that property owner is able to write off that $1 million as the basis for their tax deduction, it could be that the price could even be reduced and it could be sold for 900,000, and now somebody will buy it so that they
Mm.
can repurpose it. So, do you see any trends? I know you're not necessarily a real estate expert, but you're certainly a financial expert. Do you see any trends in that area of properties and buildings being repurposed?
I do. I mean, you don't see it. I don't keep my eye on it for a lot of reasons for, obviously, but I do see it, every once in a while, although I know it's going on more than I recognize. But yeah, I see a lot of things being repurposed anymore when it comes to real estate. And I think that, my gosh, we're repurposing everything in our lives to one degree or another. And so, real estate's no exception to that.
Well, we love working with, partnering with, collaborating with other organizations. One of our favorite sayings at The Rock is, do what you do best and refer the rest. So we
Mhm.
are not attorneys or CPAs or wealth managers or family offices. We're just a bunch of visionary people who know that fundraising system is broken and that when you can donate real estate to serve the nonprofit world, according to Dr. Russell James, it can 6 times the growth of that nonprofit. So we're just that big megaphone letting people know that this is even possible. And then we partner with organizations like yours to bring even more awareness. What would you say to the CPAs and the tax accountants and the people in your type of industry that are advising people financially? What would you say to them about having this donation of real estate as a specialty, as a niche to help the clients they currently have and actually attract more clients, because all those other CPAs don't know how this works? What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I, I work with a lot of CPAs around the country and locally, and God bless them. I've even got a few of them as clients, and they're good people. They're just overwhelmed, especially if they're mainly doing tax returns, and they're so overwhelmed they don't have the time to delve into some of these areas and realize how beneficial that they might be. And so I see it all the time. I see, tax people, that CPAs, enrolled agents, what have you, will tell their client when they come to them with a sale of a whatever it may be that has potential for capital gains exposure. Well, best thing is just sell it and pay the tax and go on. Well, that's one option. Then a lot of times they'll have it, sell it on contract, so they spread the taxes over time or something of that nature. But if they really know and bring in the team that knows all the strategies for eliminating, mitigating, and reducing taxation, then they'd have some strategies in their backpack that they could talk to their clients about. Now, not all clients want to do charitable giving, and that's fine. There's other strategies that can work, but they can't rule it out just because they're not familiar with it.
Amen. And I'm so glad you brought that up about, well, you could just sell it and pay the taxes. And when we have a charitable real estate masterclass, and we explain how there are 3 ways that a property owner can help a nonprofit. Now, to your point, not everybody wants to be philanthropic and donate, but if they do, for them to sell the property and then make a donation to the nonprofit, as we explain it, is the worst way to do it, because the government, is going to give it. If there's 800,000 in capital gains, there's about 200 grand going to the government that
Right.
could have gone to the nonprofit world. So to sell it,
Or the client could retain some of that value by not paying the tax, okay, depending on how they structure the gift. I've seen it lots of times. A lot of people with means, affluent or wealthy, they give a lot to charity, mainly cash. They give monthly, they give annually, whatever. Or you've got a retired widow, let's say, that's a affluent, and she goes to church every Sunday, or she works with the local charity, and she gives her cash donations all the time. But what she hasn't told them is that she's donating some farm ground or a building or some type of property to them when she passes, and it's in her will or in her trust to be distributed to a charity. She never mentions it sometimes to the charity, and so she's given these little dollar amounts all the way. I call them little compared to the property, but and doesn't mention it to them. And then, oh, she passes away, and her kids say, "Well, mom wants you to have this property," and they don't want it because they don't know how to manage it or sell it. Okay, and now mom's gone; she can't do anything about it to change it. So it's kind of wrecked her plans, if that makes sense.
for sure. One of our newest clients, who's going to be putting the donate real estate button on a nonprofit out in California that's really prominent. When he met us about a year ago, he loved what we were doing, because about a year prior to meeting us, he had a client who left in their will $40 million to one of the local nonprofits, and he listed it and sold it and made a nice commission off of selling all of it. And that nonprofit got 40 million, give or take a little bit in taxes. But he said, if I had only known then what I learned from you now, Cami, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars more that could have A, gone to the nonprofit, and B, if we had known about it, we could have planned this out over the last 3 or 5 or 10 years of their life so that they could have been saving taxes, maybe
Mhm.
donating one property here and one property there, as opposed to, death and here's all of it. So, to your point, it's what people don't know that's leaving those family members not able to fulfill their wish. It's what people don't know that's stopping them from benefiting more and helping the nonprofit more by not knowing how this works.
Yeah, and just to touch on something you just said, because it comes up a lot, and that is a lot of people will say, that I love that idea, donating property, real estate, and et cetera to my favorite charity, their favorite charity. But then they think, but I worked so hard and I wanted my kids to get all this. Well, there's still a way because many times we will couple or partner the charitable gift with what's referred to as a wealth replacement trust, and it's actually paid for, funded with some tax savings off of that donation. And when they pass away, their heirs get the full value or more of what that donated property was worth, and so everybody comes out ahead.
Once again, that's why we have a saying, do what you do best and refer the rest, because these are all ideas that I didn't even know about and that not the nonprofits just don't know about. So that's why we need people like you to step in and help us really educate people and inform them options and opportunities, not convincing and selling, providing options and opportunities. So Terry, to wrap up our interview today, what are some final thoughts you have for people on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, and my final thoughts are, we don't sell anything; we just help people, and really don't have something to sell because when we give options, usually one of those options is a fit. So if you're interested or at least want to find out more how donating real estate to charity might help you and your family, let's have that conversation and look at the options so that you don't miss an opportunity that you didn't know about. Okay. You may end up doing something different, and that's okay. But at least, I tell people all the time, I don't care what you do. Okay. I really don't care what you do. What I do care about is you have all of the options to make the most intelligent decision for yourself and your family.
Amen. Wow, I've said the same type of thing for years. Making a good business decision starts with knowing what your options are. So, Terry Dupont, thank you
Exactly.
for bringing this awareness. We do want to encourage our viewers and listeners to reach out to people who know how this works. We will put in the show notes and description of this video how to reach Terry and his team. And we are the real agents of change. Our goal is to move the needle from 9 billion a year, which is currently donated to nonprofits through gifts of real estate, to the 29 billion a year that experts say it could, should, would be with a little bit of exposure. Terry, thank you for being here and showing people just another person, another perspective of how this works. See you guys on the next episode. Thank you.
Yeah.